Do you fire Tom Thibodeau and then hire his associate, his assistant coach, worried that maybe the Suns would get him first? Do you make that move to preempt Johnnie Bryant getting hired by the Phoenix Suns? I don't know, but this is getting very interesting. Who do the New York Knicks hire going forward without Tom Thibodeau? It's going to be a very, very interesting. What kind of tea leaves are you looking at as we look forward to who the Knicks replace him with?
Well, yeah, I think that the sort of the round of names that came up immediately after the news broke, and you're just like, well, Michael Malone, New York, grew up in New York, Brendan Malone, his dad, has this Knicks ties, yada, yada, yada. Like, that makes a ton of sense. Won a championship, makes a ton of sense. People talking about Jeff Van Gundy coming back, Mike Brown is out there on the list, like there's naming a lot of guys who sort of, maybe not all temperamentally very similar to Thibodeau, but like defense first head coaches that are not necessarily known as the most creative offensive minds in the world. And that, which, fairly or unfairly, all of these coaches are dramatically more creative offensively than, most of us watching from the couch. But none of that smelled quite right to me, because it feels like and I wrote about this a little bit at Yahoo Sports last night, it feels like the idea the operating idea behind moving on from Thibodeau is this coach did not maximize the roster he was given. We go out, we trade for Karl Anthony Towns, we trade for Mikal Bridges, we give you the ingredients to play a 5-out, space the floor, bomb away from three kind of offense that we view that sort of team as that sort of approach, that sort of team as what we need to do to get to the next level, to get to that championship level. And you approached the season largely by not playing 5-out lineups, by making sure that when Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns were on the floor together, almost all of the time, Josh Hart was on the floor with them. Teams started, from the Celtics did it opening night, putting a center on Josh Hart and a wing on Karl Anthony Towns. Other teams didn't start to do it for a couple of months, but they started doing it like mid-December rather. The Knicks offense became average from January 1st through the end of the season. It was below average in the playoffs. They won 2 rounds with their defense largely, and then this basically fell apart as the series went on against the Pacers. So there are, now that's like a glass half empty view of the way things went with Tom Thibodeau. There's certainly a glass half full argument, which is like, you guys were a laughingstock for 25 years, and then he came in here and raised the floor to respectability. 4 playoff series wins in 5 years. I think there had been 1 in the previous 20. So like established a new category or a new level of accountability and consistency and competitiveness with the Knicks that hadn't been there for ages. So, you don't want to look down your nose at that at all. But I think the idea behind making the move is, if we like to compete for a championship, we needed to maximize what the offense can look like here. So then Johnnie Bryant was, before he got to Tom Thibodeau's staff in New York, he was really well regarded in Utah for a number of years. Donovan Mitchell, swore up and down by him. He was on those Quinn Snyder staffs where you're putting teams in the blender, you're getting the offense cooking, your motion, and it's not all just like one stagnant thing. You're getting guys attacking with an advantage. Spacing is not just about your shooting; it's about how people are moving and where they're, how they're replacing one another, how you're lifting from the corner to the perimeter, all those sorts of things. It would make some sense, because if the goal here is we're looking for our version of, Mark Jackson becomes Steve Kerr, or Dwayne Casey becomes Nick Nurse, or, I guess it has not translated into a championship yet, but like JB Bickerstaff into Kenny Atkinson. There makes some sense, that idea of moving to Johnnie Bryant as somebody who might have a little bit more of a creative offensive approach. It's a big risk, especially you're talking about a first-time head coach coming in at this highest level. But I think that's what the place the Knicks find themselves in right now, is saying we need to nail this hire, but the way we need to nail it is with a more malleable and creative offensive approach. And whoever they decide is going to be that guy, I'm going to be fascinated to find out who it is. Johnnie Bryant's name is going to come up an awful lot, though, now that he didn't get that job in Phoenix.
Yeah, Kenny Atkinson's got to be feeling a certain way right now, right? Like Jordan Ott is now going to coach another team off of his bench, and then you have over there Johnnie Bryant interviewing with Phoenix, and then potentially taking over for Tom Thibodeau. And who was the best offense in the NBA in the regular season? It was Cleveland. So it would make sense if the New York Knicks look at Johnnie Bryant and say, like, that's our guy. We want to have a lot more creativity offensively. He has a lot of good rapport among star players around the league, not just Donovan Mitchell, but also Damian Lillard. And so he has that credibility. And I don't know why he left the bench under Tom Thibodeau a year ago to take that Cleveland job, but maybe it was like, hey, I think Thibodeau's the guy. I'm not going to be able to get that opportunity, but now the door is open, and I suspect you're going to hear a lot more about Johnnie Bryant in New York, because as we're seeing, like Jay Wright, Seth Davis tweeting out that Jay Wright's, no, there's no chance. I have a better chance of taking the New York Knicks job than Jay Wright does. Then you got Stephon Bondi over at the New York Post who's saying you can just forget about Michael Malone replacing Tom Thibodeau. And what's interesting about that is like Michael Malone might be the closest proxy to Tom Thibodeau in the league. Like you look at how he coached the Denver Nuggets and the short bench that he had. I looked this up over the last 6 postseasons. When you look at the top 7 guys on your roster in the postseason, how much of the minutes, the total minutes are being played by your top 7 guys. And the record over the last 6 years, the team that had the highest percentage of their overall minutes played by the top 7 was, of course, Tom Thibodeau with 93.5% of the minutes going to the top 7 guys. A huge knock on Tom Thibodeau is that he doesn't go deep into the bench. He runs his guys into the ground. It's something that Mikal Bridges talked about openly this season, is that like, hey, these guys deserve a shot. Like, go to the bench more. Like, we shouldn't be playing as much. They deserve some run. And Tom Thibodeau gets let go. The guy number 2 on that list of relying on their top 7 guys the most is Michael Malone winning the championship in 2023. So, like, if you want to go deeper and get more creative lineups and have a little bit more offensive kind of diversity, I'm not so sure Michael Malone is the right choice. But, like, maybe Johnnie Bryant's the guy, because Nick Nurse, 0 head coaching experience, took the Toronto Raptors over the hump and won the championship in 2019. Steve Kerr, like you mentioned, 0 coaching experience before he took that job in Golden State and eventually won the championship and many championships with Golden State. So I think Johnnie Bryant makes some sense, and he has some experience with Jalen Brunson and that team. Question is, can he unlock Karl-Anthony Towns in ways that will get them deeper into the postseason? Big risk.